This is NBA Talk. I'm Erik Torenberg, joined by special guest Dan Barto, Head of Player Development at IMG Academy, along with my co-hosts Reuben Torenberg and Frack. Let's dive in.
What's up, guys?
What are we watching?
I don't know. There's nothing to watch anymore.
I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what to do at night anymore.
Well, WWE SmackDown's in Chicago, and CM Punk led off the show, so that's pretty entertaining. If you're a wrestling fan, that's
Amazing.
big. That's big news. Anytime CM Punk is back in Chicago.
Cool stuff, man. I was hoping that this finals would be more interesting. But I feel like it is what it is. Just first, you have to congratulate Reuben for picking the Mavs-Celtics. I think you won this round of predictions. Is it, if you play that series, a few more times, do you think Boston just wins 4-0, 4-1 every time? Or do you think, how do you think about that?
You want to go first, Dan?
Yeah, I just don't think that. I think it was the nightmare matchup. I think kind of what we talked about last time with the switchability of what Boston could do defensively. Dallas coming off of some draining series and being heavy usage with Luka and Kyrie, and really the other guys not having enough versatility to create anything in transition or create anything in isolation hurt them. I mean, Hardaway was disappointing. Josh Green played okay in, I guess, the last game. The upfront guys, like I said, the passes and the space just became different. So the ways that they succeeded in the first three series, just they were those alleys and lanes and lobs and extra passes for wide open threes just weren't there. And I think, again, you credit Boston. They took better shots. Mazzulla put Drew Holiday down into that dunker spot, so they just exposed Kyrie and Luka for what they are defensively. But mainly they just ran out of gas. Like, you just can't. They didn't expect to be there. They got there. 4 weeks in a row is just too much.
Yeah. I would agree in that. I would say Celts probably win 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 series if they continue to go against each other. There were a couple close calls there. Lucas fouling out game one, they had a chance and kind of fell apart late. But to Dan's point, I think it's just too much firepower for Boston. The better team 100% won.
Do you think there's any team other than Nuggets who could have matched up well with Boston and taken them to 7 or even beat them?
I mean, I think Clippers, Lakers, and Suns all match up better with the Celtics than the Mavs and maybe even the Nuggets. This year's Nuggets.
Right.
These teams were close in the West. It turned out one way. I think if you play those 4 series 10 times, I think it plays out 6 or 7 different ways.
Yeah, I wish we could just start the playoffs over again. Like, that would be awesome. Like, fresh slate, where they are, whoever's healthy today, just have, play 5-game series.
Yeah.
In the month of June.
And it's amazing how what happens once now affects what's going to happen throughout the entire summer. And so many of these guys are going to switch teams, even though they were close,
It did feel like March Madness in a way where some of it was just if you played the Western Conference playoffs 10 times, I don't think the Mavs make the finals in three of those 10 times. I think they lose the Clippers half the time. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, and then they lose the Thunder the other half the time, and then they lose to the Nuggets. I feel like the odds of them getting to the finals are slim. That said, like you said, the West it's maybe for every team. Maybe the Nuggets only make it 3 or 4 times out of 10 if they were the best. I'm not sure if they are, but whereas Boston probably makes it 9 out of 10 times. Or 8 out of 10 times or something if the Bucks or, of course, the Knicks.
A lot of those guys were hurt. Injuries determine every single finals winner. And this season, I think it was more pronounced than usual. Remember, Kawhi was out. Embiid was out. Giannis was out. Mitchell was out. Pretty much every matchup, Celtics had a big player out. Jimmy Butler was out. And the Mavs had some injury luck too.
Yeah.
And it's physically hard to average 25 plus points a game all year long in today's NBA.
Luka was hurt too.
It is sad for Kawhi to play the whole season and then get injured for the playoffs.
If you're the Clippers,
he sent a bill to Adam Silver. He probably sent whatever his playoff bonus bill, whatever he could have earned. He probably sent it to Adam Silver.
If you're the Clippers, would you continue to build around Kawhi / and Paul George, or like how many times you got to see the same thing happen for you to be like, all right, let's switch directions?
This is what I want to do in this episode. I want to go through a bunch of teams and just hot takes. What should they do? If you're the Clippers, I probably blow it up. I'm a big blow it up kind of guy.
Eric's going to blow it up with every team. This guy, all he does is blow it up. Reuben, he always says to me, Reuben, why doesn't your team just tank every single time? You're going to get the best picks.
Well, that's what you are tanking. You're accidentally tanking. But Clippers, I mean, Kawhi, are you going to make the finals if you're the Clippers? I mean,
who knows? Are you going to be healthy?
Well, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if you trade Kawhi, George, and Harden, you can get 8 picks out of that? I mean, you can get a lot of picks, right? Is the OKC strategy not a strategy that more teams should just be taking? Jazz strategy too.
But that's not quite what they did. They traded for a shit ton of picks. They didn't really tank for a shit ton of picks.
No.
Or are you saying the trade strategy?
I'm saying the same thing. Trade your stars for picks. Dan, what do you think?
I just think that really kills morale. Again, I think that when you look at the amount of GMs that get cycled through in those types of situations, yes, Oklahoma City did it. Just like Golden State manipulated the cap and the times and the CBA to have their run, Oklahoma City manipulated the rules of the trades and the picks and distributing assets. And I don't think you can copy things 4 years after they start. Like, you can copycat it the year after. Like, people might be able to copycat what Indiana and Dallas did with their midseason acquisitions, and the Knicks with their midseason acquisition to be better the second half of the year. But I don't think we've seen how people are going to manipulate this new system. So I wouldn't do that, because you're playing under different rules and different guidelines. So you can't – I don't think trading a star is as good as trying to convince a star to take a 2-year deal. I don't think teams – I think there's maybe 5 teams that really know how to develop draft picks, and how those 5 teams develop over the next 5 years is going to be different than what Oklahoma City just did, because you can't even say that you can say they developed them, but probably what they deserve the most credit for is identifying them and then putting them in a learning environment where they could learn from some stars that were still left with enough repetition. That's kind of what I study. So I think the kid that's coming through today is much different than the kid that came through 5 years ago. I mean, let's face it, the kids that are coming into this draft are COVID kids. So we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what they're mentally prepared for when this goes to 82 games and their social media followers stop increasing and they get traded twice. We really don't know how people are going to handle this. Obviously, Wenbanayama was fantastic, and that's a generational situation, but we don't know what he's going to do in 2 years if the Spurs are still not in the playoffs. And there's no one even remotely close to his level of talent this year. And next year it's even worse. I mean, people like the 2026 draft, but that's like media people that really don't even necessarily understand the difference between talent and development.
Hold on. I thought next year's draft was slated to be pretty good. Isn't that the Cooper Flag draft? And like Dylan Harper. There's a couple good guys at the top. This guy DeBonsa, AJ DeBonsa.
Yeah, but I mean, the 26 is the one that they're drooling on. Next year is better than this year, but we don't know that. Like, if Cooper Flag averages 8 points a game,
he looks pretty good.
Huh?
He looks like he's pretty good.
I understand, but there was how many guys that were supposed to be one and done?
Totally.
Isaiah Collier was the number one player in the draft, and now he's the 23rd pick. Like,
it can totally be hit or miss. I completely agree. We don't believe in Reed Shepherd. He's pretty cash.
Let's get back to basics. If you're the Clippers, Dan, what do you do this offseason?
I probably walk Paul George out the door. He's my piece. You get the most for him in whatever you do, or he opens up a big enough gap where you can sign two players, or you can promote a guy. Let's say promote a guy into more shots and more playing time.
What do you get for him?
And then you're less like you got to change your style of play a little bit. You know, what I liked about them is they kind of played through the elbows and they played through the posts and they kind of played a little bit more early 2000s style, probably because that's when Ty Lue was rolling and he, those sets work in the regular season, but the pace of play, some guys that can be in the pace of play a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say trade for Julius Randle for Paul George, even though you'd probably love that. But I do think you have to, I think it would have to be, it would have to be some younger guys that can get, look, you could trade him to Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City moved Giddey yesterday, but why would you not take, why would you not take Lou Dort and somebody else that can get up and down the floor? Lou Dort and Kason Wallace and a pick or two picks and see what you can do there. Get yourself some shooting, get yourself some guys that defend and can get up and down the court and be healthy for 82 games and been to the playoffs as young players. And then they get Paul George. So that's not a bad deal. And they need another rim protector. They need Zubac is good, but they need to upgrade from the other things that they have on the front line. I hope they give my man IMG alum Moussa Diabate a little bit more of run because he's another guy that can get up and down and play at the pace that they need to probably for what's going to happen in the West.
Yeah. If you're the Mavs, do you just run it back? Or are you trying to – what are you trying to do? Are you consolidating?
Reuben probably has notebooks filled right now. He has a notebook for the Lakers and a notebook for the Mavs. So fire, Reuben.
All right, if I'm the Mavs, I think you need a third guy who you can really count on when the chips are down. I think that was like their clear flaw against Dallas. Once they bottled up Luka and Kyrie, those fringe PJ Washington wasn't cutting it, even though he was great in the playoffs. You obviously got to keep him. Derek Jones, same kind of thing. But I like both those guys. I think they stay. I think some kind of package of pick, Hardaway, Kleba, maybe even Exum throw in, although I liked him too. I think he played well. I don't know what's that's going to get you, but you got to get a long athletic wing. I'd love to see them. It's hard because this guy's not healthy, but I'd love to see them get Anunoby. I think that would be a great pickup. But I think they just kind of need that one similar type piece. And give me another year of Lively, another year of Gafford, PJ growing in that role. I think it's good. I think they're going to be competitive next year, but I think it's going to be very hard to get back. The West is tough.
Yeah. Anunoby is like a one-man defense or something. Like you can hide people like Brunson and Luka by having Anunoby, it seems. And I don't know who else in the NBA, Draymond, is kind of like that. But
I don't like Draymond on that team because he's just he can't shoot.
Let's talk about the Warriors. If you're the Warriors, what do you do in this offseason?
Curious to hear from you, Dan.
mean, the same way I walk Klay Thompson out. I mean, I think the pace of play and what needs to be done and the way the hierarchy falls. I don't think there's probably enough people banging down the door for Draymond that makes sense. I think Klay's people probably see him as a number two. I don't think they can win with him as a number two. And he probably needs a rebrand. Like, it's really tough to come off a year like he had, unless Steph would be injured and, miss a bunch of games. Like, because to get your mojo back and get your swagger back, you just need lots of touches and lots of freedom and people really happy, not people asking questions and kind of relegating you towards closer to retirement than closer to a championship. So again, I think he's a movable piece. There's teams that need guys. Does he go to Philadelphia? Does he go to, does he go to Miami?
Orlando? How about Orlando?
Orlando obviously has the ability to utilize him in a multi-position role, and they're trying to same way. Like, these teams need to learn to win in the playoffs. So a guy like that, you can send more assets out than maybe he's worth, and you're just rolling the dice. And if he only plays 60 games because you're trying to save him for the playoffs, nobody's going to care.
Yeah.
And then I think that reinvents his career, and that's a win-win. And then you reinvent the Golden State fan base is excited, and again, you can probably play faster and do things. And just like we're already like over the Celtics just won the championship like 3 days ago, like these dudes are going to get traded and move, and people are just going to be like, cool, let's roll. Like, it's not like the past where the loyalty and the, all right, I'll go get another jersey. Like, it's
yeah, that's interesting.
Do you keep Wiggins?
If you can get anything for him.
I think it's easier to move him at the deadline than it is now. Like, I look at him the opposite way. Like, you're probably going to have to take back less assets because of where he's at.
Yeah.
And I'm a believer as a GM in this standpoint. If you are expecting to compete for your conference, then you have to be willing. You can't be the alpha. I need to win the trade. Does that make sense? Like, you need to win games, and you need to do what you need to do to be better than you were last year. You don't need to be you don't need to be Sam Presti and be like, oh, I played 4D chess with you and figured it out and you didn't see it coming and I swindled you. Like, you just need to move on and win 15 more games, and then it doesn't matter.
Yep. Yeah. I read that they were, the Warriors, I think, were like 28-7 after the All-Star break, they had the second best record. It was somewhere around there. I don't know if that exact number is right. But it may, they played a shitty game in that play-in against the Kings. But then I look back, Celtics lost game 4 to the Mavs by 38. Had that been the play-in, it'd be over. You can't. Every team puts up a dud. I think they just put a dud at a really, really bad time. And like we said before, I think it's so thin within the West that if I were GM of the Warriors, I would also let Klay walk just to create more playing time for the guards who are rising up: Moody, Kuminga, Podziemski, Wiggins. But otherwise, I would keep these young dudes and let them grow, try and maximize the remaining years you have with Curry. Hopefully get another guy in this year's draft. But yeah, I think I'd even keep Wiggins as well and kind of just put this past year down as a wash and see if he can play better going forward. Because, he's still relatively close to his prime, if not at his prime. I think he's like 29, 30. So yeah, I'd want to see what I have. I agree. The deadline could be a time to trade him if he's still not performing.
You have this situation too, where now they're 2 years removed from Bob Myers. So they can't sit there and do nothing. Like it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Chris Paul's probably going to walk.
Because even if you win like the the arrogance of people like, oh, like we're winning with Bob Myers and Steve Kerr's crew. Like that just doesn't. That's not the way these guys think.
Right.
And it is interesting. They tried to make the 2 timeline thing work. The pool kind of blow up made it so that it didn't work. Has any team ever figured that out? Like done a seamless kind of transition and just stay? Maybe the Spurs. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe.
I was about to say the Spurs.
Yeah.
From David Robinson, Timmy D, then Timmy D, Tony Parker, Ginobili, then kind of Kawhi as the lead dog. But even then, they didn't make it last too long. Once Timmy was gone, it was pretty much over.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Well, you didn't. So I guess what I'm hearing from you guys is that Warriors are going to be relegated to mediocrity next year as well. Like they'll be lucky to make playoffs, and that team should be content with mediocrity. I guess, Dan, obviously you understand much more about the GM dynamic and the sort of, economic structure of the league. But my intuitive, understanding or logic, which is wrong probably because it doesn't take those things into account, is just that you should either compete for a championship or tank so that you can get picks and then compete for a championship. And by tank, I don't mean lose on purpose. I mean sell your players for picks.
Well, and again, that's where you're an entrepreneur. So you think like an owner. And I think more owners are thinking that way. But when you're a GM and a coach, you're thinking of, okay, if I just shuffle 2 or 3 pieces around, then, I don't think Golden State will be relegated if they trade Clay and they get more athletic and they play and they develop the guys that they have. I mean, they could run Denver and Phoenix and the Lakers off the court in 3 straight series next year. Again, when you add everything up, with people, guys that he's had it, Thompson's had injuries, he had a tough year. Where's he at mentally? What does his entourage and people want? And it just doesn't, to me that's the North Star of moves.
Yeah. I actually completely agree. I'm on Dan's side on this one. I don't agree with that ethos, Erik, because the Celtics are a great example. I believe in the power of continuity. Just because they played one way this year doesn't mean they're going to play the exact same next year. All these young dudes took leaps. Kuminga took a huge leap. He could easily take another one next year. This kid Jackson Davis is really good. He could also take a leap. Podziemski's good. Moody started to play really well towards the end of the year. These guys are only going to get more PT if Clay leaves. If you see better play from Wiggins, Steph is still Steph. They're a dangerous team. I think too many teams make the mistake of blowing it up or just making flashy changes, and you can never develop the continuity needed to win. I think it's what happened to the Suns this year, although injuries obviously played a huge part.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess my logic, what I would say for the Warriors is I would say either go in for a star, if the right star is, I don't, probably not Paul George, but can
what
Steph
star?
Curry, Giannis? Can Steph Curry convince,
this guy,
top 10, top 15 player to come join?
But it's not about convincing them. You have to convince the team and the GM and the owner. He's not getting rid of Giannis. Jokic isn't on the market. Neither is Embiid.
Yeah, but does the way the league work basically that if a player just wants to be if Jimmy Butler wants to play with Steph Curry, they're just going to trade him? Didn't we see this with Dame last year? Right? He's I want to play with Giannis, and then he got traded.
Well, he tried to force his way to the Heat. And then
first he wanted to go to the Heat.
Yeah. We probably have 2 more years of the older superstars being able to dictate what if they wanted. They can't make the other team deal, but if they want out and they want to be somewhere specific, it's going to be hard to stop it. You just can't say it anymore with the way, if you come out in public and say it, not only are you being fined, but basically Adam Silver's then sending people in to investigate. And I think that's where they've changed the rules in a good way is, they don't handcuff the player, but they handcuff the organization from having the conversations, and then you can be fined and you can lose picks, and they can really put a dent into your allocation of resources. So teams aren't working behind the scenes like they were 5 years ago to make those things happen.
Yeah, Durant got away with it. So did AD, but they've cracked down.
All right, Reuben, if you're the Lakers, what are you doing this offseason?
It's a tough question. I'm not sure. I like this JJ Redick hire though. I think he's going to be good. I'm like all in on JJ. I think he's just an amazing person, and I love the way his mind thinks. And I think he's going to be a good coach. Most of the world probably doesn't think that. Similarly, I think you got to work along the fringes. I think you got to get rid of a little bit of fat that play too much, mainly D'Angelo Russell. Like, I think he's got to go. I think he's just got to go, and we got to bring in a defensive player who could shoot. I don't know if I want like ton of star power. If we could get Paul George, I think that'd be fantastic. I don't think it's realistic at all. Wow, that'd be awesome. Oh, it'd be amazing. But really, I think it's more, Hachimura I think is going to stay. Reeves is going to get a little bit more of a prominent role. Can we get something from Vincent? Can we get another, strong role player piece? I'd love like a KCP or an Isaiah Joe, someone who can shoot it. And then just, I think, run it right back. Like, I want to see another great season from AD. The truth is, in all honesty, I love the Lakers so much. I think that their window is kind of closed. I just think, it's kind of closed. But I think these dudes can still compete. And I think they can still be a playoff team. It's hard for me to see them going 4 rounds and going all the way right now. I just don't think they have the depth or and I think LeBron's a little bit too – I'd take that back. I think LeBron's still LeBron, but I think it's going to be tough.
Reuben, do you want to do a Turpentine Lakers specific podcast? We could go we could go daily from now until after probably the Olympics with all the stuff they're going to have going on. Like we could dedicate 1/3 to Bronny's draft, 1/3
let's get him
on potential landing spots, 1/3 to can LeBron buy the Lakers. Like we could really, really get some deep conversation. But
I didn't even mention Bronny. I would love for us to get him.
My first, I agree with Reuben. I think they should run it back. D'Lo, opt in or opt out. He should opt out so somebody's going to pay him. There's teams that need to spend money. If he opts in, I don't know what the trade timeline would be, but I think you have to move off him just for efficiency reasons. And then, in detail here, you have to look at, and the Nuggets talked about it a lot, and Jokic talked about it a lot. You got to look at everything through the lens of the first 3 steps. The Lakers weren't great in transition unless it was LeBron. The Lakers weren't good at getting back when LeBron and AD missed shots. And a lot of that is the other players who were on the floor aren't good at the first 3 steps after something happens. Whether that's changing ends. That's a changing ends type of thing. Like when Christian Wood was healthy, he's not good at it. Gabe Vincent is a shoot first guy, so he's not thinking about the first 3 steps as things change. So I think you got to look at it through the lens of the first 3. Like if you don't have guys that can make those first 3 steps, great. If you bring in a third star, it's probably not going to be a first 3 step guy. So again, you're not going to be able to keep up with the tempo of what's going to be going on in the Western Conference next year. I think you probably got to keep Hachimura, but he's got to buy into being more efficient. You get rid of D'Lo, who's totally inefficient. I would probably keep Dinwiddie because you can get him cheap now because he has been there and probably wants to be there. And he's better than Gabe Vincent because Gabe Vincent, when he's not scoring and taking shots, is not a team player. He just had a good little burst in Miami. I think that they wasted money there, and he'll be impossible to move. And JJ is either going to make or break Austin Reeves. He probably sees a lot of himself in Austin Reeves, but Austin is highly inefficient as well. If you really look at, the amount of dribbles that he needs to get his offense and the way that it needs to go through LeBron and AD in order to be unbeatable, you can't have a guy like that. Like, guys need to fall into their roles and play off those guys. Option 2 is you move AD and you move AD for large assets. You move AD for Vujacic and Levine, or you move AD for you could look at Ingram and somebody else coming. You could look at it for Ingram and a sign and trade for Vacilunas. You could look at Trae Young and Capella. Like, you move him to somewhere where he could be the superstar. He could be a potential MVP candidate. He can help somebody there. And then you get other pieces that help you play fast in the West and are willing to listen to JJ Redick. And JJ's I think he is going to demand a lot. Like, look, he played for Coach K. He made a hell of a career. He's notorious for the way that, I trained him, so I know how hard he worked out and what he expected of himself. So I think that's going to raise the culture. But I think that's the two ways you look at winning the West if you're the Lakers.
Would you trade AD if you were the GM?
I would.
If I was the Lakers, I would fire the GM. I would fire myself for what I did the last 2 years.
Which moves?
Huh?
Which moves?
The Kuzma KCP for Westbrook move kills me.
I mean, they signed a bunch of guys that never won anything. You signed Gabe Vincent, you signed Hitchimura, you signed Christian Wood, and you give Reeves and D'Lo that much of an offensive output without keeping the coach intact, of holding them accountable. Like, that comes from the GM. I know he won a ring, but since then, I mean, I don't know if he's listening to LeBron necessarily, but again, if you're trying to win, you need winners. You don't need talent. You need winners. You need culture. You need role. You need, specifics, things that that are going to help around 2 or 3 superstars. And again, with their media, that you can have every out in the world. They own the media, so it's like, oh, this is the out. It's this guy's fault. We had injuries. We didn't have, like, you can make up any rationalization you want because you just won a ring in whatever it was, 21 or 22.
But Vanderbilt was hurt. If he was there, it's a championship.
But and I like him, but he can't. He can't shoot.
That's the problem. He can't shoot.
Star stopper. He goes for steals and blocks every time.
He does.
And so just because he statistically looks like a good defender, he's a negative.
Yeah. I think we got to get positive role players. The GM also let Caruso walk. Worst decision they ever made. Erik, what do you think about the Lakers?
I think they do. I mean, let's see, what can you get for Anthony? I mean, for Anthony, it's interesting because normally I'm like, trade for picks, but especially when the stock is high. I mean, I think the Bulls are the perfect example of, like, a few years ago they could have traded Zach LaVine, and now they can't, or they can't get anything for him. A few years ago, they could have got a lot for him. And so when you identify, or the same, RJ Barrett, when you identify a guy who is playing very well and other people think he's good, but you identify he's probably not a winner, and especially if he's inefficient or whatever, and especially if he's injury prone, I think that's a good time to trade him. And so the Bulls are a team where they basically just lost their trade value of their respective players, and now they're in a really tough spot. And I think Lakers kind of like, I mean, how many good years does Anthony Davis have left, right? He's
31.
Pretty injury prone.
He should have been the defensive player of the year. Like,
he just had one of his best years. He was very good this year. I hear what you're saying.
You don't give him 5 year. You don't give him 5 year extension.
Yeah.
Right,
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think it's a valid take, but I also think that you're not really weighing in that if they trade AD, LeBron's probably not either going to play or is gone, or you know what I mean. He's going to force his way out. Like you're kind of, it's a delicate situation.
Lakers and Warriors are the only teams because you're not trading Curry, you're not trading LeBron, in my opinion, if you're the GM. And so those are the teams where I'm like, okay, let's actually go for something here. But you also don't want to mortgage your whole future. So what are the stars that you can get for Anthony Davis? I mean, I don't know if I want Trae Young. Like, is he a winner either? I don't know. But is there could you trade Anthony Davis for OG Anunoby and Julius Randle? I'm teasing, but
should we also do a full podcast only on the Knicks every day about possibilities that they're going to get Donovan Mitchell plus maybe Luka and Jokic and Giannis and Anthony Davis?
I do think OG Anunoby, I think he's a championship. Like I predict he gets 3 championships by the time he retires. Two more. I think you want him on your team.
He's your Drew Holiday.
Yeah, basically, I'd rather have him than Drew Holiday for sure. But I love Drew Holiday.
But the problem is that he's always hurt. We were just talking about this. How many good years does OG Anunoby have left?
He's at 26.
He's gotten hurt every single year of his career.
Let's see this. He isn't. That is a big risk.
Are you going to pay him $150 million? If you're the Knicks, would you pay him that?
I probably would. I mean, we were 27-9 or 29-7 or something with him. I mean, that's like incredible.
The first headline is that he's supposed to land $200 million contract in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, we might lose him. It's a huge risk.
Would you rather have him there or Randall?
I'd rather have him for sure. And I like Julius Randle. Like I know. I'm happy keeping him. No, I'm happy keeping him.
That's your boy.
Obviously, we're not going to get through. Well, let me so finish thought. I'd trade Davis to see what kind of players can I get for him that are interesting. You mentioned Paul George. I don't know if that's right necessarily. How about Lauri Markkanen or something? I don't know, a player on the come up. He's got a lot of years ahead of him.
Probably has to go to the East though. Like I think we might get into a little bit of, I was surprised to see the Giddy to Chicago for Caruso yesterday. Like that's like East to West. I don't think teams are going to trade intra-conference
because you're going to go up against them.
With these stars, I think we're going to see stars switch. I'll be shocked to see more than maybe one trade where a guy stays in the conference. I think we're going to see all cross-conference star swapping.
Let's identify. We're not going to get through all the teams this time. Let's identify a few more teams. I'll pick one, and then either of you can pick one. If you're Miami Heat, what do you do? Do you keep Butler? Do you not? I probably trade him for I don't see Miami really competing for a championship at the moment. And so I think you got some nice piece. You got Bam. Who else do you have?
Rozier, Hero.
You got Hero. I think Rozier is unclear how much he's got left in the tank. I would consider trading him too if he's got any market value.
He's super young. I think he's like 27 or 28.
I would trade Butler and Rozier for I would do the OKC get the next shy SGA or try to trade for a young player and or picks.
Who's the next SGA? This dude's a stud.
Cam Reddish. I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. He's pretty good, but I guess he can't make it in the NBA. But I don't know.
It's tough. Do the Lakers keep him? No, just kidding.
Well, again, I think you have to look at if you're Miami, what are some assets in the Western Conference that are where somebody benefits by taking Hero or Jimmy. So I'm just using an example. Like, could you move Rozier, or could you move Hero for Anthony Simons?
I wouldn't like that.
Or could you
For the
move,
Blazers.
Could you move?
But you might be able to.
Can you move Jimmy for Darius Garland?
That's interesting.
I like that.
You know, can you move? Can you move? Obviously, I don't look at Rozier as the third star necessarily. I look at Hero as kind of the third star. I mean, all three of them, depending on the night, with Hero, Bam, and Jimmy. They have four guys. Like, they really do have four guys, like Boston had four guys. So do you upgrade at center and true point guard? Just keep the core and go get somebody? Or, I mean, a lot of people are saying Hero and Jimmy and Rozier can't coexist, but we just watched Boston do it. I don't know how it works. I don't know how it works. You know, is there an OKC trade in there? You know, do you do something? You know, is it the same as my earlier theory? Is Bam the guy? Is Bam your biggest asset? And you get AD. You know, Hero and Bam for AD.
I'm intrigued. I think if you're the Heat, you got to keep Bam. He's an ascending player. He gets better every year.
Does he help you beat the Celtics?
I think he's a piece of it. Maybe not in his current role. Maybe you get, a center behind him and move him to the 4 and let him, he can switch on a Tatum and Brown. Like, there's not many other centers that can do that. And I think we're all in agreement that you trade Jimmy even if it's just for the fact that the guy is 35 and wants a 5-year max deal. You gotta do a sign and trade. Like, don't let him walk for nothing. See if you can get something for him. But I agree in that they've got some pretty good guys. Just the fringe players really didn't play well. Maybe, I don't know if Martin's got, any value. To Eric's point, last year when you gave him that contract would have been a great time to facilitate a trade and take advantage of that value. Like, was it just flash in a can the way he played last playoffs? Or lightning in a bottle, I should say.
Flash in the pan.
Flash in the pan. Flash in the can. Lightning in a bottle. You know what I meant. But, I certainly don't think that they should just blow it up.
No, if I was the Lakers, I would certainly take Anthony Davis.
For Bam.
Sorry, Bam and Hero for Anthony Davis. I like that a lot.
I'm intrigued. I would be intrigued as well. I think Bam's amazing. He's an awesome player.
I think I'm not saying Miami should blow it up. I am saying trade Butler. What do you trade him for? Not to keep bringing my guys, but what do you think about a Bam and Julius Randle front court? That's bruising. That's pretty strong.
I don't hate it. I think Randle would be great in Miami. I like that. And you know who I think would be a cheap signing to replace Butler, which is rather funny because they were on the same team. Maybe you get Tobias Harris on the cheap. Revive him a little bit in that Heat culture.
And you have Rozier and Hero, and Duncan Robinson and Caleb Martin.
Duncan Robinson, my guy.
It's not bad.
Doing it. He gets better every year too. He's driving to the rack.
But again, if the playoffs started again today, and you said who, if healthy, who could beat the Celtics, like, we'd be talking about the current Miami team.
No.
I don't see it.
I don't see it. I also think Duncan Robinson, although a nice utility player, will just get targeted every single play in the playoffs, and it's hard to win with someone like that playing big minutes.
Yeah. We wanted to see Hero take that next step into, just keep getting better, and haven't seen it. Rozier has been on losing teams for the last 5 years, it seems like. And
he played well in the Celtics early, remember?
Yeah, as a rookie or something earlier. Yeah.
First 2 years.
Let's who should take Jimmy? What team should pick up Jimmy?
I got an interesting one. The Kings.
For what or for who?
That's the hard part. Some kind of deal packaged around Barnes, maybe Monk for the contract. Herder. It's gonna be those three, maybe in a pick.
I don't understand. Dude, Monk is so nasty. He's like
He's
amazing.
good.
He got paid yesterday.
Yeah, 4 years, 78. I think it's a great contract.
Yeah, I would have taken him in a second if we could get him.
Yeah.
I just don't know what kind of team thrives with Jimmy Butler. Like, it didn't work in Philly a few years ago.
It totally worked in Philly a few years ago. They got beat on Game 7 in a miraculous shot. If they missed that, they win the championship.
Would you do?
I think, his best fit.
Would you swap? And this is probably outlandish based on the numbers, but would you swap Jimmy for Kawhi?
Personally, no shot. Erik, what do you think?
Wait, meaning you'd rather have Kawhi?
Yes, 100 times out of 100.
Paul George.
I would be down to trade Kawhi. I think Kawhi has a lot of.
Just more interesting.
I think Kawhi has a lot of market value. Well, it's hard for me to evaluate how much he has left in the tank, but I don't know. But I don't think Jimmy gets you, or like Harden. I don't know.
I like him on the Kings because he's a little bit older. It's very clear he's not going to play in every game. And those dudes are so young and spry and could use kind of like a strong veteran presence who can get you a big bucket when you really need it, along with De'Aaron Fox. And I just think always they're like three has never – Harrison Barnes is just not good enough as a starter. And I think that dude Keegan Murray is ascending and is going to be a good player. Where would you want to see it?
This is where the creativity on some of these contract structures come in because, with extensions and people could do. I think you can do like a 3-year extension, and it could be like 2 years guaranteed, and the other year's a team deal. So again, I think a lot of what we're talking about is next year based. But just like you said, Jimmy wants this outrageous deal. Tobias Harris, will he take cheap money? Will D'Lo opt in? The economics does play into it, but so does like the motivation. Like the subpar teams are motivated to make the playoffs and sell tickets. So like when I made the comment about Anthony Simons, like does Jimmy Butler reignite the fan base in Portland? Like it would have to be Jimmy and somebody else. It would have to be him and somebody else you'd have to bring in. But, like, Chauncey Billups isn't just going to mail it in and get himself fired.
Right. I don't hate it.
Sacramento is not going to be the 10s. Their goal is not to be the play-in game again. And so when you look at the motivations of some of these teams that we may not be thinking about, like the Jazz owner just bought the team. He probably wants to be in the playoffs because that helps his brand. The Suns guy we know is willing to roll the dice and do crazy. Did Jimmy and Tyler Hero get traded for Bradley Beal? Like that's a legitimate thing that could happen just because of the necessary change in the motivation of either A, GM and coach to stay on board, or B, the owners like, look, this is do or die. Every day we're either making money or losing money.
Yeah, but I don't want no Bradley Beal.
Do you want Simons? Would you do Jimmy for Simons if you were the Heat?
Nah.
I like it for the Blazers. But give Shaedon Sharpe the reins, him and Scoot, and dominating. I can't even say it with a straight face.
Would you trade Jimmy Butler? And again, I'm using a motivations one. Would you trade Jimmy Butler for LaMelo Ball?
If I was who? The Hornets?
Yeah, if you were the Heat.
No.
Yeah, I would. That's it's a risky one, but that upside is high.
I thought you want winners.
I agree. I'm just saying, like I'm arguing against myself. It sells tickets. It brings young kids to your brand. It gives you a long, big point guard to kind of go at the Celtics in a different way. It helps with your switchability across. You're trying to beat Boston, right? So what are you going to do to beat Boston?
He can't switch onto Jalen or Tatum.
But he has the. I'm saying he has the.
He's got the length.
I don't think. I agree. He's going to get isolated too.
Yeah. He's going to get so targeted.
but he's also going to throw some crazy cross court passes and hit some step backs, and
And
I don't. Again, I don't.
I don't disagree.
I think you're going to see teams like the Heat and in some of these old and the Warriors. Like I think there's going to have to be some risk taking.
To that end, I like, you asked who the next SGA is. I mean, at the time, SGA was even a bench player when he got traded. Like, like 10-point a game score, 12 point. I mean, it was like afterthought a little bit, or, a nice young player in the way that Brunson was a nice young player when he went to the Knicks. But then, like, I like taking bets on these guys who have the potential to really escalate their career, even if that means. And so, is Anthony Simons that guy? I don't know. But
Cade Cunningham,
yeah.
Detroit's being risky. I mean, do you give up your?
I even like Jaden Ivey or whatever. I think he's on the cheap now too because he was kind of out of the rotation or out of the starting lineup a bit.
Maybe some Jalen Green action. Cam Whitmore.
Green, yeah.
That dude Whitmore can fly.
I really like the Rockets.
Amen Thompson.
I mean, yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Again, I think the Rockets have a high pick, so they're gonna, we could talk about the draft for another day too, but again, if they draft one of these young guys that has to play right away, then they'd probably be willing to move off of Whitmore and Thompson or they might be willing to move off Van Fleet. He signed one of those shorter kind of big money deals that's a little bit shorter in years. So they could be a dancing partner.
I think they're an interesting trade partner. Yeah. I would, if I was Miami, that's where I would trade Jimmy Butler.
I would trade Van Fleet if you're the Rockets. I don't see him as a long-term point guard of his salary. At his salary, I think.
Well, and if you're they could draft Reed Shepherd or Dillingham or one of those young point guards. Or Topic. I love Topic. So they could draft one of those guys and move Van Fleet for, another seasoned veteran to make their playoff run. Because same way, that owner doesn't want to not make noise and be in the playoff contention. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Basically, I like the idea of selling high when a player has impressive stats, but you kind of don't see it long term. Like Keldon Johnson a few years ago, or a couple of years, had like 22 points a game. Devin Vassell, I think also. Like, are these long term players for the Spurs? Maybe yes, maybe no. I think it's fine that they let DeJounte Murray walk. Like, I think it just didn't see him as a Spurs lifer, Spurs caliber culture player.
They're definitely they could if they want to make the playoffs. They can. Do they want to take one step forward, or do they want to? Be in the conference semifinals next year in the West. Because whoever they drafted for is not getting them over the hump. Like they probably need to deal a couple of those young wings and some of their future picks to bring in. I mean, again, that's a place: Paul George, Brandon Ingram, Jimmy Butler, Darius Garland, Trae Young. Like we could go on and on and on about the guys that could fit next to. I mean, anybody can fit next to Wenbanayama, but you want. The right deal.
I think it'd be a great landing spot for Trae Young. I'd love to see that.
Who gets traded?
Like who goes to Atlanta?
Yeah, you'd probably have to that would probably have to be 3 teams.
Yeah, but I think it's Keldon Johnson's probably the main piece. Maybe a pick from this draft. They've got 4 and 8.
Who are Spurs high contract players? Are they like so below the
cap? Vassell is a high contract player, and I think he's good. I keep him for sure. I think he's a very good player. I think Sohan is not a high contract player, but I think he's a piece that you keep. You just got him. I think he's good.
Yeah.
I think Trey Jones, backup point guard, you keep him. I think Keldon Johnson could be traded.
I think you say, Victor, who do you want me to trade?
yeah, literally. I think within 3 years they're going to be top 4 team in the West.
Yeah.
See, I can't do it. Like it's the same thing that I said about Zion, and the dude's just going to be injured. He's just going to be injured. It's you have to build with him, not around him.
Yeah.
it's just there just has been no proof. I mean, I guess Chet Holmgren was healthy this whole year, and Dirk was healthy for his whole career, for a decent chunk of his career. But and Lauri Markkanen's been relatively healthy. But you just look at the history of the last 20 years of the NBA, and the body types don't lie.
Yeah.
The small guys don't win, and the big or fat heavy guys just don't ever earn their contracts or lead to championships.
Hashtag Andrew Bynum.
Roy Hibbert.
Godin.
Brooke Lopez reinvented himself, though.
Ooh, yeah. Jonathan Bender.
Oh my God. Dragon Bender?
Huh?
Dragon Bender, too.
Dragon Bender, yes.
Are they siblings?
No, come on. Dragon Bender's European.
Yeah, Reuben, what do we do about these Blazers? Maybe let's end on this one. If you're the GM, dude, I feel like it's been a tough couple years for the GM.
It's been a tough couple years for the GM. All right, for some context, we got Rob Williams returning. We'll have Rob Williams and Aiden down low. Shaedon Sharpe, a lot of injuries last year, going to blossom this year with some time alongside Scoot Henderson coming into his second year, maybe going to play a little bit better. Game's going to slow down a little bit. I think we have pick number 7 in this draft. I'd love to see us get like a talented vet, someone who can actually play and really contribute and help these dudes grow, who's just, a mature voice in the room. We had Holiday for a second and I got really excited. I would love someone like him, someone who's just an adult, plays selflessly, teaches these guys what it means to sacrifice. But next year's, if we're being realistic, it's going to be another rebuilding year. So I just want to see some progress out of these young dudes. If they do get players, additional vets, you still want to be able to give enough time to the most important players in the team, which to me are Scoot, Shaedon Sharpe, and either Simons or Aiden, I guess. Aiden had a great last month, but I don't believe that Rob Williams can stay healthy. So maybe we target like Klingon, a big who can actually stay on the court, someone who can be a force in the paint and, get us some defensive stops because we couldn't, stop it. We were a turnstile last year is the honest truth. We got a couple of years to get back to relevancy and let's start doing some draft research.
So we got potential sale of the team.
Yep.
We have Chauncey wants to win. GM wants to keep his job. Chauncey wants to keep his job. Chauncey and GM most likely colluding. Not going to go into the tax because the team could potentially be for sale in the next 2 years. So, it becomes who's willing to send us 2 stars without disrupting the long-term plan. So again, you look at the older vets who maybe want the bigger money deal without the years. So guys that can be extended without the years, or free agents who might do a 2 with the team option or a 1-and-1 with a player option, then that's easily tradable. So again, your Jimmys, your Paul Georges, your Brandon Ingrams. Brandon actually has a couple years on it, but if you can swap out the salary, and you probably look for guys that you got. I mean, look, Chauncey was a journeyman. He played for 5 teams before they won the championship in Detroit. So he probably has no problem taking on a little bit of risk or taking on a guy that may be a guy like Jimmy who may be considered a little bit, controversial, or taking on a guy that he thinks a guy or 2 that he thinks he can reinvent. And
how about Klay Thompson?
I mean, yeah, like Klay Thompson could be the perfect match. But if I'm them, I'm not hesitating to move Simons, Henderson, or Aiden or Sharpe. Like I'm looking at we need to be the 6 or 7 seed. The 8 seed gets you probably fired.
Yeah.
So how do you do that without going into the apron and that's either picks or you give up your young talent. I look at their young talent and I don't see any winners, so I don't have any problem moving off of that young talent.
I got another name for you. I think would be a good fit. Hartenstein.
Yeah, he's a winner.
His 7th year, yes, you're correct. Oh, he was with the Clippers when they won.
Yeah, I hear you, Dan. I think if people see it that way, it's hard to argue against it. These guys haven't shown us that they can consistently be truly competitive, but I see the talent.
It's a fan base. It's just a different fan base. Like, it is a fan base that is proud of the overachieving mentality that they've always had, and they are a loud fan base. They and they want to win or they're going to come and boo. And so I think you have 1 year where you can have like this year, and then you have to do something. Like, there's not a lot of fan bases that are as unique as Portland. And let's face it, they weren't ready for the Dame demands. Does that make sense? Like, I know they forced his hand and they sucked the talent out of there, and they said they wanted to build around him. But at the same time, now it's been a year. So if you're the fan base, they're like, okay, what are we doing? Like, we understand we've only been the 4 through 8 seed for 12 years, but we need to be there or you guys need to go.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I think that's why it's so hard to build in the NBA, because you can't – there's so few situations where you can truly have patience, because you're going to get fired. It's just what it comes down to. Job security is like the key factor. Presti can do it because he's there. Pop can do it. Spo can do it.
I like what OKC has done. I mean, obviously they're the pinnacle. I like what the Jazz have done. I like either getting stars or getting a lot of picks for your stars. I don't like what Portland has done, where they traded Dame, and I'm just not excited about Aiden, and I'm not excited about Robert Williams, relative to either another star or 6 picks. And
we got 3 picks.
Okay, but if Gobert gets 6 picks, Dame only gets 3. Traded Dame a couple years earlier. He's a mega star. And so you could have got more for him that could have set up the franchise, I think, for a longer term success. That said, I do like what the Rockets have done too, which is take your young stars and put some vets around them. Put Dylan Brooks. I think it was an amazing pickup. Brooks was at his low after buy low, sell high. Get Brooks after who's right now had a bad playoffs, who people are kind of counting out or is on their way out, but they're a great defender or whatever, they can really play. And I feel like Rockets have created a winning culture around. They got young guys and some tools, and maybe the Blazers. Who's the Blazers? Dylan Brooks. Could
Jaden McDaniels.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if he's Dylan Brooks, but it's not bad.
Him too. He's not going anywhere.
Can you trade Jeremy Grant and I kind of like Brogdon.
Oh, I forgot about Jeremy Grant. Oh my God, legend.
Yeah, I mean, they got some assets that people will see. I didn't like the Raptors rebuild too. You traded OG and Pascal, and who else did they trade? I guess you keep Barnes, but and for not that much, I guess.
And they let Van Vliet walk for nothing, but they got quickly.
Cook is good.
But with the Blazers, could they be one move away from being the Pacers?
I don't know.
Who's that one guy? It's Scoot Henderson's rise
I'm just
up.
saying, like, if Anthony takes the Halliburton step, not that they're necessarily the same position, and Shaedon Sharpe takes the step and Scoot takes the step, am I wrong? Does that make sense? And will Chauncey do his homework enough, and then you build your culture around we are going to be the Pacers and shock the West? Because if you're 10-4 in the first month of the season, like, those fans will be going nuts. Like, the whole country will be talking about them. But who's that player? Like, because
Dan, I hope you speak it into existence.
Is Ayton Miles Turner, like everybody in the world wanted to trade Miles. Every Pacer fan wanted to trade Miles Turner for 4 consecutive years. Now they're like naming their kids Miles. Like,
Erik, we bought DeAndre Ayton low, just like your ethos. Maybe next year after the Bahamas Summer League where he gets those bonds.
These are real. That's a real, like everything we just discussed about the Blazers is a real possibility.
Let's go. He's going to mature.
The coach and GM are fired by December. They're this year's Pacers. They trade all their good young players, and they bring in Klay Thompson and Brandon Ingram, and they're the 6th seed. Like that all could legitimately happen.
Let's go. I would love to see that. That would be awesome.
Have Rick Carlisle, and they have this unique, 10 deep. And TJ McConnell. Pacers got winners, man.
Dude, you told me at the beginning of the playoffs that Nesmith and Nembhard couldn't even start on your team, and now you're calling them winners?
I said they're not going to – you keep changing my quote. I said you're not going to make the finals with Nembhard and Nesmith on your team.
They were so close. God.
Yeah, really close.
You're right. I apologize. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
In class this week, we watched we were doing floaters and runners and all that stuff, and we watched we did Trae Young first, and then we did Darius Garland, and then we did TJ McConnell, and the kids were like all going crazy for TJ McConnell. And then I saw today he's working out a long-term extension with the Pacers.
Let's go. We were talking about him all playoffs. He's the man. He deserves it.
He's a winner. You bought Aiden low, but he went lower. But Dylan Brooks was unfairly derided. I mean, Aiden is
unfairly derided as well.
Is he?
Remember when he locked down Jokic in the playoffs on the championship run, and he was fantastic. We've seen it from him before.
So do you think
he was the number one pick?
Do you think Aiden has peaked, or do you think he has better days ahead of him?
Honestly, it's hard to get behind the guy. He's a Blazer now, so I got to stay behind him, but it's difficult. It's difficult.
There is something to be said for the big guys, obviously. And again, we talked about Hardenstein. I make fun of him, but the big guys peak between 27 and 29. Like it's abnormal for them to peak before that. And we see certain guys coming into their own. And maybe because of the culture that he's from and being from the Bahamas and kind of the nature of how he was raised, maybe his window is a little bit deeper maturity-wise when you combine those two things. Because, one of the things I like about Aiden is, he does have those – he seems like he wants to please people, but – he came from a culture that is a little bit more, an island culture, right? He came to the States and he was the epitome of the shoe war and the colleges illegally paying kids and the one and done. Like he just got psychologically, he lost like 5 years, not to his own fault. And then, again, he played in a very difficult circumstance early in his career trying to find his own pleasing everybody. So he could be – he could have the breakout. Like I can't say that there isn't hope for him being a dominating NBA center over the next 24 months.
He is only 25 years old.
So he's pre-peaking still. He has another year before he's supposed to peak. Take what I said in and move his timeline back 2 years. As a 28-year-old, he could be a all-NBA player.
Yeah, let's revisit that Dame trade conversation then, Erik.
Reuben, I'll give you Precious Achiuwa and 2 second-round picks for Malcolm Brogdon. And you take Bogey, too. Bogey and Precious Achiuwa for make the numbers work. And 2 second-round picks.
If you made those 2 second rounds a first round pick, I'd take it.
Yeah, Brogdon's not getting 2 first round picks.
No, I said 1 first round pick.
Oh, I don't know. Precious Achiuwa is pretty good.
He's not pretty good. I just don't think. Yeah, I'd rather have Jabari Walker.
I think Precious Achiuwa might be one of the reasons they let Hartenstein walk.
Yeah,
legitimately. Randall's coming back. Achua's more than capable. I liked him. I'm happy he played good in the playoffs. I just can't pay him that money.
Would you take Mitch Robinson from Malcolm Brogdon? You probably would.
In a heartbeat. You don't even have to finish the trade. I would love Mitch Robinson. Oh my God, I think he's amazing.
I do love Mitch Robinson.
Brogdon would be a really, really good piece.
He's a good player.
Yeah,
he played well for us.
Really, really good piece to not disrupt the guard camaraderie.
Yeah, I agree. I would keep him if I was the Blazers. I'd trade. I'm saying
if he went to the Knicks, I
know.
Like that, I think that would be great for the Knicks.
I agree.
I think he's a nice piece. I think he's a nice piece for someone, and we should use him to get a first-round pick.
And then Mitchell Robinson and Robert Williams can sit next to each other with their boots on for 52 games.
I really like both those guys. I wish they could just stay healthy. Come on. They're both young, too. They're both still young.
Portland's best stem cell expert.
Hey. Robert Williams, 26 years old.
Yeah, I think you got to keep Robert Williams because who's going to take he doesn't have trade value at the moment.
No,
but I was arguing with some people yesterday because a lot of my friends and basketball people were down on the trade, but it goes into the same thing. Like Robert Williams has had 3 surgeries. Like Alex Caruso literally missed games for 7 different reasons last year. I'm just saying, I think the Bulls looked at it look, we can't extend this guy for what he wants, so we have to get off of him. And you end up getting Giddey, who's 21 years old, and if you overextend him at $25 million a year, 2 years from now, that's going to be a great deal at his numbers. Even if you pay him $30 million a year at 16 points a game, somewhere between 12 and 16 points a game. In 2027, that's going to be cheap. You're going to have him at half a max. Yeah. So I'm just using the example. There's certain criteria. If a guy has 4 different injuries or a guy's had the same foot, they're just such a risky asset, whether that's Caruso or Robinson or Robert Williams. So you're taking a really calculated 1-year gamble on guys.
Yeah. That's a good place to wrap. This has been a great deep dive on a bunch of different teams, and we'll do it again soon, perhaps around the draft. Reuben, Dan, as always, pleasure.
Much love, fellas.
You guys,
such a great time.
Great weekend.
Take care. Have a great weekend.